Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Copeland, and I run Secret Hopper and Craft Beer Professionals. To give you a reference when this is being made, today is the 28th of December, 2020, and it has been quite a year. Once again, my name's Andrew, and in a past life, I ran a food service operation that oversaw concessions at stadiums and arenas all across the country. Through this, I learned that it's about more than just a baseball game. It's more than the band on the stage or even just the beer in your glass. It's about the overall experience and the lasting memory that it comes with. That is the absolute most important thing you can be doing in your tap room, creating experiences. Now, most of us go to breweries with the intent of talking to other people. Community. The craft beer community is one of the best parts about our industry. I'm going to do my best to get to know you through the screen. Even though you are not watching this while I'm doing this, I want you to feel my energy. And at any point after you watch this, feel free to email me with a question. Leave a question in the comments. I am here to help. Normally, I ask you to interrupt me while I'm presenting. That's not quite possible today, but I want to make sure we're having a little bit of human interaction. So if you were watching this in the last few days of 2020 or 5 years from now, shoot me a message. I love to chat beer. Now, 2020, it truly has been quite the year. And if you're watching, like I said, in 2020, you've made it almost to the other side. If not, congratulations, you have. There's no need to talk about the crippling effect of COVID-19 that we've all felt this year. But in a time for uncertainty, we must all turn to innovation for hope. The craft brewing industry has had to completely pivot. And if you're playing along at home and you've had a couple of drinks in you, we can make this a fun time. Every time I say one of those pandemic keywords, innovate, pivot, new normal, feel free to take a quick little drink. You can go back and rewatch what you missed later. But so many breweries have launched online stores, you've offered pickup, and even delivery. I'm sure by now you've tested so many different new ideas. And once again, everything is worth trying. Now we're going to pop this little presentation up here so you can kind of follow along with what I am talking about. And here we go. Now, in April, our toes were merely just dipping into the pandemic, and most of us did not have a plan to survive. No one had a pandemic plan in their back pocket. However, even then, we knew that success would be defined as the willingness to innovate, the strength to fight, and the desire to keep a positive attitude to come out stronger and smarter than before. The challenges brought by COVID-19 are not over. We must continue to strategize, have a plan in order to stand out, survive the winter, and beyond. If you're watching, like I said, in late 2021, perhaps we've made it out of this pandemic alive, which I'm sure we will. But a lot of these things are going to take time to get back to that, normal we had before this new normal. So a lot of the things we're learning right now during COVID, they may stick, and we're going to talk about that today. But what we're going to really do today is focus on what you can do in your tap room to make the most of the current craft beer landscape. Whether you are a brewery owner for 25 years or you're just considering opening your first tap room, these are concepts that will be vital for creating the perfect experience. But first, I want to ask you. Now, a lot of times I'll give these presentations at night, and sometimes they're in that social setting where you might have a beer in your hand. So if you do, now is a good time to take a small sip of that. But ask yourself, why are you here? Why did you choose to work in craft beer? What do you love about this industry? Craft beer, when you're working in the industry, is more than just a job. We want to have fun. We love this industry. But at the same time, we want to make each and every taproom experience as profitable as possible. Let's begin. Close your eyes and imagine I'm wearing a mask. What am I thinking? What's my mood? Am I happy to be here? Of course I am. I love talking beer. I've truly enjoyed getting to virtually know so many great people through the pandemic, but this has brought challenges to how we interact both virtually and in person. No longer can we easily and safely interact with strangers, customers, friends, and family, a huge part of the community created in the tap room. No longer can a bartender quickly flash a quick smile as a welcoming gesture or a subtle way to thank a guest. While COVID-19 has changed the way we interact, it has not changed the ultimate goal. You are in it to sell beer. Now let's talk about how you can use your words to do just that. Simply stated, you want to build a connection with each guest that walks into your tap room. It starts with a hello, and a hello demonstrates acknowledgement. If there's a line of guests safely separated 6 feet apart between them, tell the guests further in line that you'll be with them shortly. An acknowledgement goes a long way, and they'll be much more patient if you take the time to greet them. Once interacting with the guest, share your knowledge. You are, at that moment, the only face of the brewery that matters. Enlighten them about your brand and help them discover what's right for them. Now, if we're still wearing masks when you're watching this, they cannot see your smile. Let the tone of your voice and how it moves show excitement. Feel free to also talk with your hands to convey that excitement. But most importantly, use your words to better their experience. A thank you expresses appreciation. Now, a guest who receives both a thank you and a welcome at the beginning of the experience are 97% likely to return and recommend to your brewery. No one likes to feel like they spent a ton of money on beer, no matter how delicious, and not feel appreciated. It leaves a sour taste about your brewery, and that's not the kind we like. 32% of guests are more likely to return and recommend when they are offered a sincere greeting and a thank you. I want to repeat that again. A guest who receives a sincere greeting and a thank you to your brewery is 32% more likely to return and recommend to your brewery than a guest who does not receive either. Make sure that welcome and that thank you are an important part of every guest's visit to your brewery. But now, what about what happens in between the hello and goodbye? These moments are absolutely vital. Engagement is an essential factor in maximizing your guest experiences. Staff have a greater opportunity to build this relationship during slow times. However, even during the busiest of shifts, a bartender or server can create a memorable connection. Now let's dive into what I refer to as the 30-second conversation. The first part of your 30-second conversation begins with your greeting, just like we talked about. This doesn't have to be fancy, just a simple, "Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Andrew's Brewery." When staff introduce themselves, guests tip 14% more. From these 7 simple words, you are already making a little bit more money for yourself and starting that connection. Don't be distant and indifferent. Be likable. It's your job to acknowledge guests. Have some fun. Welcome guests upon entering and or approaching the bar. Don't just stare at your guests waiting for them to speak. That's a little bit awkward. If you miss this opportunity to create that initial interaction, you have already reduced your effectiveness. Begin by being approachable and welcoming. Now, when a brewery employee greets a guest in this manner, that guest will recommend and return based on that experience 95% of the time. That's when you give them a sincere greeting. When a brewery employee does not begin the experience with a smile, when you can give an actual smile, hello, or other welcoming gesture, that guest will only recommend or return 76% of the time. This is a difference of 19%. A simple greeting lets your guests know that they are glad you decided to drink with them today. Second, while it may seem like common sense, be friendly. At this moment, that guest is all that matters. Be their best friend. Whether during a pandemic or beyond, people crave interaction. These few seconds should include phrases like, "How's your day going? Have you visited before? What a beautiful evening. Glad you came to visit." You will sometimes feel like a broken record as you hold the same conversation countless times throughout the day. However, this doesn't matter during each interaction. Look at each guest as an opportunity to fine-tune your conversation skills. Get personal and create instant connections. Next up, offer direction. This can include, what's your favorite style of beer? Looking for anything in particular? Want to start with a flight? You've already gotten to know a little bit about your guests. Now get to know their taste. This guidance will help you better serve them during this encounter and also help you better assist them on future visits. Everyone likes to be remembered, and try your best to retain everything you learn from these brief questions. The fourth component to this conversation is the delivery. Announce to your guests what you are serving. Recite not only the name, but also the style. Here's your secret operation Belgian IPA. If serving a flight, let your guests know the order in which their selections have been arranged. Here's your flight. It goes left to right, starting with our lager, Belgian, stout, and whatever may be your seasonal. This is a short moment of education. For many guests, this could be their first experience at your brewery. Make sure they know what they are drinking. It shouldn't have to be said, but don't just sling a drink at your guest and walk away. I went to a brewery recently that's known for their hazy IPAs. I walked up to their counter and their menu, it was a little confusing, but I ordered a few of the, half pours of their new hazies. Then the bartender comes to me and hands me 2 pint glasses. I asked them which is which. They could not tell me which beer was which. If I like more than one more than the other, I wouldn't be able to go back and order that same beer. Make sure you announce to your guests what you are serving them. It's going to help them enjoy that visit more and all future purchases much more. Your final element of the 30-second conversation is the finish. This should be where you wish the guests well. During this portion, include phrases such as, enjoy your pint, thanks again, thanks for coming to visit, come see me when you need another, cheers. Also, would you like any to take home with you? Let the guests know you value their purchase. Never, ever forget this. Okay, let's talk about the types of menu that you offer. While not often given much thought, the ease of the ordering process can greatly streamline your operation and allow for more customers to be served and greater engagement given to each. First off, let's talk about what's on a menu. You need to make sure you're giving your guests the appropriate level of detail. First off, the menu needs to be easy to read. We've all been to the coffee shop before that has a chalkboard menu that you can barely make out the prices or what's in each drink. Make sure it's easy to read. Next, make sure you write the beer names. Make sure you have the style. Make sure you have the alcohol content. Have you ever ordered a brewery's new stout, then after you've had a couple sips, ask the bartender the ABV and get a little surprised to learn that it's 13.6%? Make sure you have this information up there. Make sure you also have the size options that it's offered. During the pandemic times right now, not all breweries are offering flights or half pours. Make sure you have posted what actually is offered. Next up, make sure you have the pricing. The more questions you can answer with the menu, the more time you can focus on valuable engagement. Now, I really, really like a wall menu. That's when you walk into a brewery and boom, right in front of you, you see a big old menu right there on the wall. It's super valuable upon entry. And why? It educates the guest. It lets me know what you have in your tap room. It prepares me to order. If there's an ordering line I have to walk up to, by the time I get to the person taking my order, I probably already know what I want, or it's going to save a little bit of time anyways. Once again, it's going to remove that confusion. How many times have you walked into a brewery, not seen a menu, and got to the place where you order and have to have a conversation about, hey, what do you have today? It removes that confusion about what you're going to order, and it also reduces the ordering time. Now, a physical menu. I also very, very much like these physical menus. It's very valuable while you're enjoying your first beer. And what I mean by a physical menu is something you can hold in your hands. Whether it's a paper menu, laminated menu, it's something you can physically hold in your hands. People like to read. If you and I are having a beer together, we're going to talk about that menu. We're going to talk about what we want to try. We're going to talk about what we don't want to try. We're going to talk about the history of the brewery if it's written on there. It's going to facilitate some sort of conversation between us. But more importantly, it's also going to encourage us to think about our next drink. If I'm currently drinking a lager, I'm going to read the tasting notes on their new IPA and be like, man, this sounds delicious. I am already thinking about how I'm going to spend my money next at your tap room. And another reason I like physical menus, guests who are given physical menus spend 35% more than guests without. Think about that. Guests who are given physical menus spend 35% more than guests without. The data we reference in this presentation comes from a Secret Hopper study of over 6,000 brewery visits. So this isn't just 100 brewery visits. This is over 6,000 unique visits. And guests with given a physical menu spend 35% more. Next up, QR codes. If you're watching this way in the future, QR codes may be our standard by now. But when I'm reading this and talking about this today in 2020, before we begin the new year, QR codes really have something we've really gotten used to during the pandemic. If you want to completely reduce touch, even single-use items, this is the way to go. However, like I said, in 2020, there's a slight educational curve with QR codes. They have been on the cutting edge of technology for quite some time. They are so cutting edge that I didn't have the privilege of using one until August of this year. As someone who considers myself somewhat tech savvy, make sure you have time to educate all guests how they work. Don't just slap a fancy barcode on your table and wait for the orders to come in. Granted, if we're talking 2025 right now, we've been using them for 5 years, you might be able to do that. But here in late 2020, you still need to make sure people know how to use them. Also, when you click the link to the QR code, make sure it has all that relevant menu information we talked about a few slides ago. Make sure everything links up. I recently went to a brewery, I scanned the QR code, and as I'm scanning those first 10 beers, they were 10 beers that were not currently on tap. The brewery had every single beer they brewed that summer on the menu. Make sure those sold out items aren't included. All that menu did was get me excited about some beers that I couldn't try. So make sure it has relevant information. Now here's a fun stat. You have the ability to make your guest visits not only more memorable, but also more profitable. I want you to think about how many times you've been to an establishment enjoying a drink and the bartender never asks you if you'd like another drink. Your patience wears thin and you end up leaving. Our data shows that staff are failing to suggest a second beverage during 45% of brewery visits. I repeat, nearly half the time, staff are not asking your customers if they would like another drink. Using breweries as an example, guests that are not offered another drink spend an average of $40 per tab. Guests who are offered a second drink spend an average of $46 per visit. This is an increase of 16.3% and about $6.50 more just by suggesting another beverage. Think about the numbers. At the current figures, your average brewery is seeing approximately $4,341 per tabs, and the tabs in our study represent an average of 2 guests. This is with nearly half of those guests not being offered a second beverage. If you can train your staff to suggest a second drink, these same guests become worth $292 more. No extra labor, no extra cost, $292 in additional revenue. A guest chooses to visit your brewery. However, you contribute to how much they spend. Interact, engage, encourage. There is power in suggestion. Safely serve them a memorable experience that makes them crave more of both your beer and your company. It's the little things that ultimately make a big difference. Now, let's transition from how you interact to how your brewery positions itself during the coming months. Now, once again, we're talking about this in the heat of winter of 2020. It is getting cold. With summer being the prime months for most breweries, it can be easy to savor the moment and not think about the cooler months ahead, whether you're in a pandemic or the year beyond. However, if you're not already planning for less ideal patio weather, then you're already behind. Create a strategy to survive. Whether in summer, looking to fall, fall looking to winter, winter looking to spring, and spring looking to summer. Make sure you always have a plan. 2020 has definitely taught us that. Now, if we're talking about preparing for winter months, fire pits and heaters will obviously be your drinkers' best friends. Sure, we could all bundle up in gloves, scarves, and some ridiculous wintertime hat, but wouldn't you just prefer to sit next to a gas-powered fire pit? If legally safe, allowed in your locality, even consider a monthly bonfire. I've talked to quite a few breweries who are safely putting on a monthly bonfire. I know I take a marshmallow and an imperial stout pairing any day of the week. Make it your goal to be the most awesome winterized space in your area. More importantly, be the first to make it known. Now, if you are, let's say, the 5th to market to show that you have a fire pit, guess what? I've already found that brewery with a fire pit and a nice outdoor space where I'm spending my winter. Make sure you have a awesome outdoor setup for the colder months. But like I said, if you're simply the 3rd, 4th tap room in your area to adopt the same wintertime setup, then you're not giving the guest a unique reason to visit. Whatever you do, build it, flaunt it, and rock it. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen these going around the internet. Now, if you kind of decide to invest in some crazy looking igloo dome like this, make sure you are considering the risk and the regulations. And if you do it, make sure you're sanitizing it properly. Very, very important. No matter what route you take, whether a bonfire, whether an igloo, make sure you're taking all safety precautions and consulting with your local authorities to make sure it's something you can even do. You don't want to bring something like this in to be told you have to take it away. That is no fun. Next up, get seasonal. Now, this is going to take a wintertime focus because that's when we're talking about it, but this goes for any season. I don't know how many pictures I've seen on my Facebook feed over the years with friends diving into icy cold water to raise money for a good cause, like the polar plunge. While drinking beer isn't quite as noble, you can motivate your guests to visit even on a fall or winter day by thinking outside the box. Having a Christmas tree selection paired with a release of your holiday ale on a Saturday, a European-style winter market. Whose dog looks the best dressed up like a reindeer? That makes for a great Instagram post as well. Create events that are meant to be outside. If you've got the outdoor space, consider hosting outdoor movie nights. Pick the scariest, most seasonal movie you can find if it's Halloween, or find a great, Christmas holiday classic. Do the same around, any holiday. Go retro and get people excited to come out, bundle up, and watch a movie on the big screen. People may also want something warm to go with your cold beer. Give them a chili cook-off and invite your local food truck for a rodeo to see who wears the crown. Want to ring in the new year with some socially distant fun? How about inviting your fans to help create a time capsule for 2020 or whatever year it may be, full of all those items they want to get rid of? It could be a fun beer drinking activity to also, have everyone write letters to the hypothetical brewery guest who will open the capsule in 2120, detailing the strange year that we've had. Think outside the box. Everything is worth trying once. Don't be afraid to innovate. And if you're playing along at home, now is the time to take a sip. Now, while this event has passed, it's one of my favorites from the pandemic. Timberyard Brewing in Massachusetts did a Halloween haunted drive-through where you actually drove your car through the brew house, which was an old facility that had the ability to drive through. And when you walked in, they actually took your to-go order if you wanted to take any beer home with you. Then once you started driving your car through, they had people dancing from the ceilings in costumes. They had a whole Halloween haunted setup as you drove through. They did a really killer job with it. And then at the end of the drive-through, you picked up your beer to go. Get unique with it. This is just a fun example of people getting seasonal and selling more beer, but also putting out an actual experience. Also, simply placing your merch area in a visible location can greatly increase your merchandise sales. Guests are 9.3% more likely to purchase merchandise when it is in a visible location with clearly marked pricing. Guests only purchase 6% of the time when the area isn't visible or containing clearly priced items. Guests will make the purchase 16% of the time when it's in one of these visible locations. More importantly, staff should also encourage guests to make the added purchase. When a guest purchases merchandise, their average tab is nearly $57. When they don't purchase merch, the average tab is barely over $41. It can be taken from this that the average piece of merch is going to go for about $15. Note that this number doesn't refer to any specific type of merchandise and reflects all items sold, whether a keychain, t-shirt, hoodie, or anything else. Now, also things to consider. I highly recommend putting the merchandise on your menu. When you hand me that little physical menu and I'm reading about all your beers, and I'm also reading about that limited edition shirt from your Halloween haunted drive-through, I'm definitely going to think about, purchasing that limited edition shirt. I don't want to miss out. But also make sure if you do include it on the menu, you have those merchandise pricing. Every little reminder helps. Also, it's really important to have your staff rep your brand. While it's awesome that you want to support the other local breweries in your area, if I'm seeing that other local brewery shirt, I'm going to ask the staff member there, I'm like, hey, do they make good beer too? I've never been before. Would you recommend I go? And instead of having my second drink with you, I may go and walk to the other brewery right down the street. Well, while not all breweries have a uniform policy, there's definitely value in wearing your own shirts. You're going to sell more of your merchandise. If I keep seeing your logo every time you come to check on me, and it's an awesome logo, I'm going to consider rocking your shirts as well if you kind of give me that little bump. This pride is contagious, that staff pride of you wearing your shirt, and can carry over to the guests. Just simply suggest merchandise to people. People will consider making that added purchase as they're checking out. Also, with regard to merchandise, if you have loyal customers who come regular, get their input. See what styles they want. See what type of merchandise they want. Do they want a flannel shirt? Do they want a new custom branded growler? Do they want a blanket? Do they want slippers? Get to know your best customers. Those are the ones who are going to invest even more in your brewery through this merchandise. Also, create demand. Limited edition shirts. Fans get so excited over small batch beer releases. Put out a shirt to go with these. If you're doing a release online for a limited edition purchase, throw in a t-shirt, make it $10 more. Not only is that guest going to purchase the beer, but they're also going to get really excited about the shirt that comes along with it, because they're going to be one of just few to have it. Also, if you're kind of really encouraging the merchandise, put up a special merch stand weaved in with all, the vendors at an event that you're having. Get people excited to purchase your merchandise. In addition to using merchandise to create an army of brand advocates, it's extremely important you stay in touch with your guests even when they're not in your tap room. 86% of brewery staff are not encouraging guests to join a brewery's mailing list or loyalty rewards program. Start encouraging them to join your mailing list, whether as they're checking out, they type their address in, or you give them a little comment card where they can write it down. Staying in touch is vital. Why should you stay in touch? Well, once the initial transaction is complete, it should be your goal as a company with a product to sell to stay in touch with your potential customers in as many ways as possible. Semi-frequent emails serve as simple reminders that tell recipients you're ready to serve them. Keep them informative, entertaining, and give that drinker a reason to visit. In addition, consider collecting your customers' cell phone numbers if this is a route you like to go, to send them the occasional text message. A simple text can be a powerful marketing tool to get that person to come in and make a purchase. Moreover, open rates for text messages are typically about 90% versus about 20% for emails. Also, if you're having an online store, and at this point in time, most breweries do, when people are checking out, collect this information when they come online. Get their phone number, keep their email address, and the following week, send them a text message, say, hey, hope you enjoyed your whatever you ordered last week. Would you like to order another? Give them constant reminders. Once your tap room has an active calendar again, this can also be a key method to send reminders of where and when your fans should be spending their time. Staying in touch is extremely vital, and I highly recommend that you have email marketing going, have text message marketing going, and when you're sending out these emails, get personal. Do a staff member spotlight where you're getting people to build connections with individual members of your staff. Also, it is also your goal to create recurring purchases. Staying in touch can help build a deeper connection with your guests that results in them getting more involved with your brewery. Encourage your most loyal followers to sign up for exclusive programs. Every Thursday, I visit the same local brewery, and not once had I been asked to join their mug club. It would have saved me money, not to mention connect me deeper to their brewery. While I had been aware that their mug club existed forever, I finally signed up last Thursday because they had it big, bold, and center at the ordering counter. Now I get discounts, larger pours, and a free crowler each month. Why aren't you encouraging your guests to sign up for similar programs? Also, consider some sort of subscription where your guests' credit cards are charged monthly and they're entitled to pick up a combination of beer, whether a couple seasonal six-packs or perhaps something more limited. Lastly, while the focus of this is primarily on taproom engagement, your website can also be a valuable tool to help with these additional purchases. This is somewhat of a cheat for today, as I mentioned, but it can be extremely valuable in facilitating additional sales when a guest isn't able or willing to enjoy beer on premise. Make sure your website, once again, has the necessary information, just like your taproom menu. Make sure it's streamlined and easy to use. How many times have you been on a website and they encourage you to make an add-on purchase? Think about when you're on Vistaprint ordering like some return labels or a mouse pad or a t-shirt, and they say, hey, would you also like to get this? Do the same thing on your website. Ask anyone checking out if they'd like to add a t-shirt or a small additional item right before they finalize their order. And once again, this gets you your customer's email address so you can stay in touch better. Now at this point in time, take a sip of whatever you're drinking, if simply merely to hydrate like I am. Now I want you to think about this. Think about how many times you visited a brewery, enjoyed a couple beers, and been asked if you'd like to take any beer home, whether growlers, crowlers, cans, or bottles. Our data shows that guests are only being encouraged to make the additional purchase on 20% of visits. When not suggested to purchase beer to go, a guest only makes the added purchase 9% of the time. However, when staff do encourage someone to order beer to go, this increases to nearly 50%. Hey, Andrew, you seem like you enjoyed that IPA. Would you like to take a crowler home with you? 50% of the time, I'm going to say yes. Sometimes I'll play a game when my wife and I go to a brewery and I'll say, hey, I'm only going to take beer home with me if they ask. And unfortunately, because we see this asked only 20% of the time, I don't normally get to take beer home. So what I'm asking you, for the sake of me, please train your staff to get in the routine of asking your guests to take beer home. It's a simple way to, one, sell more beer. The guest is probably going to tip on it as well. It's going to get that higher tab. And I'm going to take it home and share it with more people, expanding your brand's reach. But really, what does it come down to? And if we were doing this later in the day, you may have a beer in hand. So I want you to think for a sec, what's potentially the most important aspect of a visit to your brewery? Feel free to leave it in the comment, whether you're watching a day after I made this or 1,000 days after I make this, because this is not going to change. The most important aspect of a visit to your brewery is engagement. You are here to build relationships. Sure, beer is the anchor of our industry, but if your taproom isn't inclusive and welcoming, I could just easily go to the brewery a couple miles away with equally as enjoyable beer. Give me a reason to return to your brewery, and that is going to be the connections I build with you and your staff. Now we're going to talk about the levels of engagement. Neutral engagement. The staff, you go through the motions. You don't impress me. You don't disappoint me. You give me my beer, and that's kind of the end of story. It's okay. Low engagement. The staff does not attempt to build a connection with the guest and is absent for the bulk of the visit. You say, hey, Andrew, here's your beer. You check on me at the end. It's a little bit more than neutral. Moderate. The staff greets the guest, offers recommendations, and checks back in a timely fashion. This is what we receive most of the time, where you get okay service. You're not mad. You're not upset. You're not overly happy. You get what you came for. High engagement. This is the only one that matters. This is when staff goes above and beyond. You are trying to wow the guest. This is when you leave the brewery and say, wow, he was an awesome bartender. She did a killer job. They definitely made my experience. This is often when you're thinking about more of the service, that level of service and engagement, than the actual quality of beer, which is obviously hugely important. But if your staff makes this impression, it's only reinforcing the fact that that guest is going to return later to your brewery. Now, guests receiving high engagement spend 15.3% more than those receiving neutral engagement. A guest who's receiving neutral engagement is going to spend an average of $39 at your brewery per visit. A guest receiving high engagement is going to spend an average of $45. I repeat, $45, $6 more. Give them a high level of engagement. Now, 46% is the likelihood of a guest returning and recommending your brewery after receiving low engagement on their first visit. This means that if I go to your brewery and receive low engagement, I'm not likely to return. Look at it that way. It's not that I'm 46% likely to return. I'm less than half likely to return, which means probably not happen. With so many other breweries making great beer and putting out great experiences, that's where I'm going to go. However, the likelihood of a guest returning and recommending your brewery after receiving high engagement on their first visit is 99%. If you are a new brewery in my area, I'm visiting your brewery for the first time, and I receive high engagement during that visit, you're going to wow me. 99% chance I am coming back because you made an impression on me. And ultimately, it's the little things that make a big difference. Every touch point matters. The more engaged you and your staff are, the more memorable the experience. The more your guests will spend, the more they'll tip, the more likely they will recommend your brewery to others, and the more likely they're going to return sooner. Stay top of mind with your consumer. And if your staff is seeing these benefits, they're going to be happier. You're going to see less turnover. And if you're the manager or boss, your job is going to be easier. Now, ultimately, leave your guests craving more. Now, right now, we're talking 2020. Pretty much 2/3 of 2020 has been spent trying to survive a pandemic. We are still trying to figure out what works best, and each day we are on a continuing path further into the unknown. Unknown how long the pandemic will continue, unknown how long we will operate with restrictions, unknown how our customers will behave. But as passionate craft beer professionals, we do not give up. Focus on the little things that will make each visit more memorable and more profitable. Hopefully, when you're watching this at any point in time, hopefully the pandemic is over, but everything we've talked about today still matters. You are here to create memorable experiences. Engage with your customers. Teach them about your brewery. Share your passion. That passion is contagious. We work in craft beer. It's a ton of fun working in the industry. Make sure you're letting every single person who comes through your doors, feel the excitement of what you have created. Now, like I said, whether you're watching this in 2020 or 2025 or whenever it may be, I would love to talk to you. I get to talk beer all day long. I get to talk to breweries in Virginia and learn what they're doing right. I get to talk to breweries in California and learn what they're doing wrong. Together, we can take all this information, put it together, and make better craft beer experiences. In 2020 right now, craft beer takes up about 13% of beer sales by volume. To me, that means we have 87% to go. Let's get more people passionate about craft beer. Once again, I'm always up for a call. I hope you, your family, and everyone at your brewery is staying safe. I love to discuss these principles more. And if you are watching to the very end, we'd love to send in a free secret hopper to your brewery as well. So we'd love to see how you're doing with regard to that customer experience. Craft beer is fun. And as I mentioned, we want to build these connections. If I can do anything to help you and just simply talk beer, I would love to do that. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch today. And if there's any topics you'd like to see us dive into further, feel free to reach out. Once again, build those connections. It'll create more memorable and more profitable experiences for your brewery. Cheers.